everyone, my name is Haley Clark, and I'm about to enter my 5th year teaching middle school Spanish at Autry Mill Middle School in Johns Creek, Georgia. Throughout my years of teaching, I have taught at 3 different middle schools, and I've taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I've also taught language arts courses as well as Spanish courses, and this is my final oral exam for our EPSI 7210 summer class. One of the multicultural objectives I feel like I was able to meet was the objective to evaluate personal beliefs and professional experience related to multicultural gifted education issues. Because I spent the last year teaching at an international school in South America, my perspective was able to shift from a middle-class white perspective to an ELL lens. Nearly all my students were ELL learners, and their classes were taught in English. I was amazed by the amount of hard work, dedication, and perseverance these kids had. I've grown up around different types of people, and I've traveled to different countries where I've been able to witness the different educational standards around the world. Through this course, I was able to reflect and realize that my eyes were opened with my students. I was amazed as I reflected, not only did they have any lack of ability because of their ELL and their English as a second language capability, they actually had a total abundance of capability. My students were hardworking, talented, and creative despite the language barrier to contribute intellectually, write and read in English, their second language. Although my school had no formal gifted program and none of my students were identified or labeled as so, because of this course because of the courses I've been taking throughout the past year, I was able to recognize gifted and creative manifestations outside of typical testing data. A reading that really struck me during this course was the article Multicultural Assessment: Present Trends and Future Directions by Suzuki. This article discussed the need for educators and test makers to look for gifted abilities outside the common written assessments, which are usually the only indicators schools use in identifying gifted students. This has become so important to me now more than ever. After seeing and experiencing gifted tendencies in my students who were not labeled as gifted, I can now see how a biased English test might hinder them from admittance into a gifted program in an American school setting. Aren't these pictures great? These are some of my students from last year. They dressed up and had to give a presentation on an important historical figure that they researched and presented on. They did a phenomenal job. The second objective I was able to meet during this course was to demonstrate cultural competence in working with gifted students from diverse backgrounds. During this course, I was able to learn about cultural competence when working with multicultural groups. As I reflected on my time teaching in Bolivia, I realized there were a lot of areas in which I had room to grow. The preface of the Ford text had a quote that hit me. It said, "The less we know about others, the more we make up." This is true in all areas of our lives, but through my lens of teaching, I was able to see it in a really impactful way. When I work with culturally different students from myself, I cannot make assumptions about who they are and how they will perform or behave because of their race or background. Last year, though I didn't realize it at the time, I went into the school year with assumptions and judgments about what my students would be able to do, what they would need from me, what they would need to work on academically, and how I could help them grow in their English language skills, and just overall who they would be because of their culture. Boy, did they prove me wrong. Ford mentioned later in the text, quote, "I believe that being culturally competent is indeed a survival skill, both inside and outside the school walls," unquote. I really learned this lesson over the past year. Ford helped put into words what I had learned living amongst a different culture and working with ELL students. Throughout this course, I learned it is a vital skill not to judge a student based on his or her appearance, first language, or cultural background. I hope to go into my new school with this mindset of all my students being capable, competent learners. Taking what I have learned from this course and moving forward, I hope to make several changes in my outlook on culturally different students and their talents and abilities. One of my future plans and a change I would like to make is to recognize gifted and talented characteristics displayed in students who are culturally and racially different. I'd also like to be able to advocate for gifted program qualifications to accommodate all students. As I mentioned earlier, multicultural students, especially ELL students, have qualities and characteristics that set them apart as gifted. Just because they might not perform well on standardized tests does not put them out of the running for gifted programs. Professionally, I hope to have courageous conversations about gifted education for multicultural students, particularly ELL students. I'm hopeful in my future school setting to have courageous conversations based on the passion, knowledge, and insight I have gained from this course. My new school also has a great number of ELL students, and I would like to be able to advocate for them and have conversations with my coworkers and administration about their needs and abilities. Another change in goal I have for myself is to not box my students in or have low expectations of my students who are different than me because of their race, language, or background. Students, when given the opportunity and chance, are great problem solvers, thinkers, communicators, artists, and so much more. The pictures I chose to put here are also from my last school year. The two girls on the left made a beautiful tissue paper flower when given the creative space and time to do so. The middle picture, although you can't see, is my 8th grade class flying paper airplanes after a student gave a presentation on something that he was passionate about, which happened to be airplanes. He led the class through an exciting discussion about airplanes, how they're made, we travel in them, and how they're useful in our modern world today. Then he prepped all the students to make paper airplanes and took them outside for an experiment to see who could fly their paper airplane the fastest. The third picture on the far right is a group of students from our school who were spending time doing a brain teaser to work together as a group to solve the problem using the bucket, the balls inside, and a string they were attached to. I'm thankful this course allowed me the time, space, and energy to reflect personally on my time teaching ELL students and to pick out all the ways they showed gifted and creative abilities. Though I may not have noticed these qualities in the moment, I'm grateful to be able to look back at pictures and moments from the year to find these golden nuggets of gifted genius displayed in my students. My goals to promote the equity issues ELLs are facing are many, but here are a few. Again, I'd love to start courageous conversations at my grade level regarding testing and class scheduling, to name a few issues for gifted students. My new school is filled with educators who want to do what is best for their students. I am hopeful they will feel the same way about having courageous conversations for the promotion and betterment of ELL and multicultural students in gifted programs, even if it means giving up a practice, mindset, or judgment they have had for many years. I also believe in educating teachers who are currently not enrolled in courses to further their own education. Once you are out of the classroom as a student, it is difficult to keep up with new practices and how the educational world is changing. I would love to be able to take what I've learned about multicultural education this summer and create a professional development opportunity for teachers at my school. The third connection I'd like to make to promote equity issues for ELLs is with an organization called Global Village Project. I actually only stumbled upon this organization this week, and I'm fascinated and encouraged and excited by the work they are doing right here in the Atlanta area. The goal of this organization is to provide education to young refugee girls whose education has been interrupted due to their relocation to the States. This organization works with ELL students and fights to catch them up to grade level equivalents with their peers, with the hopes of them graduating from the program with their high school diploma. This course has opened my eyes to the many needs ELLs and other multicultural students have in our educational system, and even right in our very own classrooms. I am grateful for the lessons I have learned and the ways I will get to improve my teaching practice as I take one step at a time towards a multicultural classroom. Thanks!